अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाजरीन, आज की हमारी पॉडकास्ट क्रिकेट रोमानिया से रिलेटेड है, जिसमें हम आपको बताएंगे कि रोमानिया में क्रिकेट कैसे शुरू हुई। रोमानिया में फ़ुटबॉल का जो है ना वो ज़्यादा रुझान है। इसके बावजूद क्रिकेट को लेके चलने वाले लोग वो कैसे क्रिकेट को मैनेज कर रहे हैं और कैसे चल रहे हैं, और क्रिकेट रोमानिया में क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं, एक अच्छे प्लेयर के लिए क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं, एवरेज प्लेयर के लिए क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं। हम ये भी आपको बताएंगे कि रोमानिया में खेलने वाले कौन से अच्छे प्लेयर्स हैं, कौन से बुरे प्लेयर्स हैं, क्रिकेट रोमानिया का स्टेटस इस वक्त क्या है। क्रिकेट रोमानिया आईसीसी रैंकिंग में 38 नंबर पे है। क्रिकेट रोमानिया यूरोपियन रीजनल क्वालिफायर राउंड्स जो है ना वो भी खेलने जाते हैं। क्रिकेट रोमानिया की हिस्ट्री कैसे शुरू हुई, कैसे क्लब्स बने, कौन चला रहा है, कैसे चल रही है, कैसे मैनेज हो रही है, आईसीसी में क्या इसका जो है ना वो अफिलिएशन है, रोमानिया गवर्नमेंट रोमानिया इसमें कितनी इन्वॉल्व है, इसका फ्यूचर क्या है। इससे रिलेटेड जितने भी क्वेश्चंस हैं, हमारे एक मैनेजर हैं, क्रिकेट रोमानिया के कोच भी हैं, उनको हमने आज मदऊ किया है। मेरे साथ हैं मिस्टर एंड्रयू। हाय मिस्टर एंड्रयू, हाउ आर यू?
I'm extremely well. Assalamu alaikum, I should have said it in the beginning. I'm extremely well, thank you, Ijaz, and it's a real pleasure to be here. I'm really grateful that you invited me.
How are you?
I'm feeling pretty well. Where are we? It's the end of February now in Bucharest, so starting to be the end of the winter. It's been not a particularly severe winter. You would know from your time here that over time the winters have become increasingly less severe, and that means that the cricket season has become longer. Ordinarily, well, when we began cricket...
Before we start going towards the cricket, could you please introduce us about yourself?
Myself, I'm Australian. I've been living in Romania for longer than I really want to admit to, except I had hair your colour when I arrived here.
What brought you to Romania?
Just curiosity, to be honest, I think, really. I was living in London at the time. I was a derivatives trader in London at the time, and my job finished there, and I didn't really want to go back to Australia at the time, which is where I'm from. I'm from Melbourne in Australia, and I had a friend who was coming to Romania, and he said, why don't you come and have a look? And so I did. I didn't have anything really to do, and I had some money saved up, and I had time as well, and I liked what I saw about Romania. And over the next year or so, I gradually moved to Romania, and I didn't really have any idea about the future, about whether I would stay here for any length of time. I got here, I didn't do anything for about a year. I just had a look at the country, did a few odd jobs here and there, and then I fell in love with a Romanian girl from Făgăraș, which is in central Romania, in a mountainous region, and I got married, and I decided that I really should start to get a little bit more serious about things. So I distributed my CV around to, I think there were only about 2 or 3 or 4 foreign banks here. At the time, I came from a background of banking. And I went and worked with the first one that showed any interest in me. So I worked as a banker for the first years of my time in Romania. I've found that Romania is the kind of country that you can reinvent yourself in, and I've certainly done that. And cricket is like about my 6th career move since I've been here.
What changes have you seen in Romania since 2006?
So many.
It's 2025.
So many. You know, I can remember a time where you would walk into a shop and people would kind of elbow each other and whisper, "Foreigner, foreigner," kind of thing. And and in those days, it was actually before mobile phones were really big. I would have a fixed phone, and I was sure that I was being listened to on the other end of the phone, because there was great suspiciousness in those days. You have to remember that really the dust took a long time to settle on the revolution. There was a bloody revolution here at the end of the 1980s. And really it took a long time to kind of work itself out, Romania. And in those days, there was still a lot of kind of communist paranoia, I would say, because the brand of communism that Romania had was way left. It was nothing in Europe. It was more like the kind of communism that happened in China under Mao Zedong. So there was great paranoia, great mistrust, and great suspicion about foreigners. But there was also a great curiosity about foreigners as well, which I kind of liked, I think, at the moment. It appealed to my ego at the time, because there were very few foreigners there in the country at that time.
And how do you feel now when you see so many foreigners here in Romania?
I think it's just been a natural progression. Romania has moved closer to the mainstream in that time. It's become a member of NATO. It's become a member of the European Union. And it is inevitable that more people will join. So it's good to see that the things that you would expect in a thriving, modern economy, proper developed nation, are starting to develop here. But the drive over here, I have to say, kind of made me think, there's still some way to go in terms of traffic courtesy, and some of the roads I'd love to see the roads better constructed. But that's just one of the few things that you have to put up with about living in Bucharest. I think the traffic, it's unavoidable, and it affects everybody.
It's very populated city.
Very, very.
Everybody likes to have a car here.
Yeah, and the roads haven't been widened, and there hasn't been the underpasses and the overpasses and the tunnels and the traffic lights and the intersections that you would expect to see with such an explosion of cars over the last, say, 20 years. Yeah.
What difference did you see when you reached Romania? Being Australian, first you spent your early life in Australia.
Yeah.
You worked in the UK.
Yeah.
You came to Romania. How life was different in these three countries?
Well, it was completely different, but I have to say that Romania is becoming less and less different. I'm starting to feel quite comfortable here.
Well, I'm talking about the early days.
Yeah, the early days. I felt like a foreigner, I have to say, in those early days. But I think that's natural, When I was living in England, I was thinking about this the other day. I was always reminded of my Australianness by English people. They would kind of say in a half joking, half nasty kind of way, idiot, Australian, kind of thing. So I never really felt like I was particularly comfortable living in England at the time when I was there. And but I feel like I've been accepted, and I feel like I've got a really wide circle of acquaintances and good friends here, which is really important.
Australian living in the UK, there are big rivalries. How did you cope with that?
There is rivalries, particularly when it comes to cricket.
Exactly.
I think historically Australia is probably certainly in the more modern era has put better cricket teams on the field than England has. Certainly in more modern times, Australia's kind of got the edge in that regard. But it's great fun. When Australians and English get together, there's a certain. It's difficult to describe. I'm not sure if the same thing happens between Pakistanis and Indians. I've noticed the Pakistani-Indian rivalry, which is famous, particularly when it comes to cricket. I don't think it's so fierce and so friendly as the English Australian thing. I can remember being at the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, when the English have been playing, and there's been like 80,000, 90,000 people just screaming for English blood, you know. So yeah, that rivalry is very much alive.
I guess a rivalry between Pakistan and India is so big that they get nervous even playing in the ground. And the crowd are the people watching home. They are even worse with their nerves because they cannot control.
Yeah.
They're losing wickets uncontrollably.
I know. I can see people like being affected so much, you know. They feel it through every cell in their body, you know. If a really famous batsman goes out cheaply, or a catch is dropped or something like that. It's the same in Australia, but for some reason I don't think.
But English, both of the English teams, Australian and the UK, they have the nerves to play.
Yeah, they do.
They fight.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
they fight.
We've seen that in the most recent matches. You and I'm sure you have, like me, have been enjoying the Champions Trophy, which is in Pakistan.
Yes.
And I was so impressed with that Australian victory over England the other day, when Australia made 356, I think it was, to overcome 351, which is a great score for an ODI, for a 50-over game. And it really wasn't until about the 43rd over that I started feeling confident, because Australia did it without their two best batters, and both Smith and Head went out really cheaply, and their three best bowlers, in fact their four best bowlers, Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark and Lyon in the team. It's very much a kind of a makeshift new team, particularly the bowling attack is very new. So I was impressed that they could pull off a win like that.
Congratulations on that.
I was happy to see that, and it was also a bit sad to see Pakistan go out, because I know it's really important for Pakistan to have a big tournament like that being played in Pakistan, and it would have been lovely to have seen Pakistan in the semi-finals and the final.
And it's so unfortunate that being the host, getting out of the tournament.
I know.
On the first place.
I know.
Actually, we are living with this. We know that anything can happen, so we are okay with it also.
Well, you have a history of anything happening. Yeah. But from my perspective, and from, I think, Australian perspectives, we would have loved to have seen Pakistan do well there. We would have loved to have seen Pakistan get into the semi-finals and maybe in the final as well. Would have loved to have seen Pakistan beat India in the semi-final. That would have been great. Unfortunately, though, it's such a short tournament. You have to basically win everything. To get through to the semi-finals. Yes. Yeah.
Any of the strongest teams beat you?
Yeah.
You're out of the tournament.
Yeah.
Because there is no run rate left after that you can rely on the run rate now.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have talked a lot about Champions Trophy. Let's talk about your cricket.
Okay.
How did you start playing cricket? And where did you start playing cricket actually?
Well, I started playing at school in Melbourne. I grew up, I think I had a Stuart Surridge bat signed by Ian Redpath. And I was sad to see that he died quite recently. There was a famous middle order of Paul Sheehan, Ian Redpath, and, this is back in the days of the Chappell Brothers and Bill Laurie.
In 80s?
That's being generous to me. That's being kind and diplomatic. No, I'm older than that, unfortunately. And so I had my bat signed by Ian Redpath, and I loved playing at school. I played for the school, and we had I think there were 10 or 11 schools that were kind of associated. We called ourselves the Associated Schools, and we played each other. We played each other in football and cricket and other sports like running and rowing and things like that, and tennis. And And I had this rivalry between, I was a batsman and I could bat quite well, but there was always a bowler that I always went out cheaply to, and his name was Phone, F-O-N-E, which is like the best name. I think I can actually remember one of the times when my father was really, really proud of me was when I was batting, and I was playing on an oval, and the kids would walk down the side of this oval after school to get on the buses to go home. And my father was like the only parent who was watching. And all these kids came past and everybody said, "Oh, Beg's batting. This is going to be really good. Let's watch." And I think from that moment...
That must be proud.
It made my father really proud, hearing, people who are my age saying something. Because it's one thing for a kid's father to say, "Oh, this is going to be really good." But for a kid to say that it's going to be really good matters a whole lot more, I think.
It's not only the proud moment for your father, but also for yourself.
Yeah.
That encouraged you probably a lot to play better.
Yeah, it did. At
what age did you move to the UK?
Oh, I didn't live in the UK for very long. I grew up in Australia, went to school there, went to university there. Like in my 30s, something like that. I only went to the UK for a short time, and as I said, I was working as a financial markets trader, and my job finished, and I didn't feel like going back to Australia at the time. So I ended up finishing there and coming to Romania.